This is going to be a video talking about fursuits. There's no such thing as gray apes. Gray apes are not real animals. Gorillas are not real. Chimpanzees are not real. Orangutans are not real. They are actors in fursuits. And that's why there's thousands of videos out there of these creatures doing amazing human antics. And that's why there's these illuminated individuals out there that can interact with these animals and record them doing silly things and be next to them. And it's because it's all a joke. There really is no scary threat of being attacked by these creatures, because it's just some Masonic Illuminati guy pulling a prank, and they love it. They love being in on this secret so much. That's why they get along. That's why it gets perpetuated so much, because they have so much fun with stuff like this. And they feel so special for being in on jokes like this. Like, why does Nikocado Avocado get a sloth? Why did he get a sloth? Why can't I just have somebody show up to my house with a sloth? And it's the same thing with these animals. I've always had a weird feeling about that. Like, why are all these people out there having access to being able to hang out with the chimpanzee? And they just look like LA type people. Like, what's so special about these people? Oh, because they're a part of the joke. They're in on the Hollywood secret that these are all fursuits. And the suits have gotten way better over time. Think about just all the advancements in technology and how much of that gets poured into Hollywood. Hollywood has, like, the top, so much money gets poured into Hollywood. And think of how computers basically got used for the movie industry. That's like one of the biggest uses of computers, and how many millions of dollars get spent on movies. And if that's never made sense to you, well, it's because they use the media to convince people of BS and get people to live in a false reality, and to push things like evolution, and to convince you that you're just a monkey. These are not real. Did you know? So, oh, I didn't even show the video yet. I'll show the silly video. I was taking so long rambling. Here's the video.
Even the animals are preparing to
It
get in
is
shape for
somebody
summer.
in a
This
fursuit.
one is also training for the next movie, Planet of the Apes.
There's no special people out there that are
working
able
out
to
improved-
get footage like that. And there's so many videos. This is a drop in the bucket of people who are clearly able to get really close to gray apes, and they're not really dangerous. And wow, they sure do act just like humans. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. So, I just want to talk about a few things for the rest of this video. Well, one, I want to make a point, because the whole working out here reminded me of it. And that's, why haven't any of these animals ever been used as manual labor? They tell us so much that these creatures are so strong. And people can clearly interact with these creatures and not die instantly. Like, they're all at the zoos. And if you go to the zoo, you'll see how they come in and out of the enclosure at the right time, all the time. Their enclosures are very clean. These are well-behaved animals. Allegedly. How come nobody's tried to enslave these creatures? How come nobody enslaved gorillas for slave labor? Or chimpanzees are supposed to be very trainable, right? You hear all the time about chimpanzees being tested on in laboratories somewhere that nobody's ever actually seen with their own eyes. Laboratories full of chimpanzees. But how come nobody has used these creatures for manual labor? Because clearly they have no problems abusing them, allegedly. And the whole thing about that story is they love to get people to emotionally attach. They love to tell those stories about the poor chimpanzees being abused in some unknown lab somewhere, because it gets people to emotionally attach. And if you emotionally attach to something like that, you believe in it. That's why there's so many tragic stories involving these creatures. There's way more tragic stories pulling at your heartstrings than there are stories of people's faces getting ripped off, but they gotta throw those stories in every once in a while to keep you thinking that they're dangerous. This was the oldest depiction of a gorilla, allegedly, according to this article, but it's not even a gorilla, it's just a demon. The miniature 4 captive demons painting on silk. They scoured through the archives to find the oldest thing that they could pass off as, oh, look, that's a gorilla, I guess. But did you know gorillas are a very recent invention? It's the same with the BS of the dinosaurs. If dinosaurs were a real thing, they wouldn't have been invented slash figured or discovered 200 years ago. There'd be a long history of people digging up dinosaur bones and classifying them, and it makes absolutely zero sense that something so ginormous would have just been discovered 200 years ago. Same thing with gorillas. There's no way that there could be human-like monkeys, and it's like nobody knew about them until 200 years ago. How does that make sense? And there's conflicting information. This video is not to dive into the history. It's just to get people thinking about this if you've never thought about this before. Very recently discovered, the first gorilla skull had been collected in 1847. How is that even possible? That the history of this creature is so recent. And it's because it was just made up. And when you get the eyes to see, when you've unprogrammed yourself for long enough, when you've really truly considered maybe they are just fursuits, they start to pop out to you. They're bad. It is obvious that it's out of Hollywood and not a real creature. Mountain gorillas were not known to the man until 1902, when a German army officer encountered two and killed them, allegedly. So bring it back to the whole, how come they don't use these creatures for labor? Well, because they tell you that they're ferocious or whatever. But then how come they can fit them in a zoo and they come in and out of the zoo so easily? You never hear about gorillas attacking their zookeeper. The gorillas go in and out of the zoo door at the right time every day, day after day. So how come nobody has enslaved them to do manual labor? Elephants are enslaved, basically, and used to do labor in places like India. So giant beasts are always used for manual labor. They use cows for labor, right? Any sort of, ox and stuff. Any beast gets used for labor. How come these guys haven't been used for manual labor at all? And, well, it's because it's not a real animal. Of course, again, they'll say that it's because they're uncontrollable or whatever. It's kind of like the zebra. They'll tell you that zebras are not rideable. But look up Victorian era England. People were riding zebras left and right. They're just painted that way. Okay, this is interesting. Who knows what about gorillas, indigenous knowledge, global justice, and human-gorilla relations? This is just hilarious, very relevant. The gorillas of Africa are known around the world, but African stories of gorillas are not. Because they don't exist, because some white dude made it up like 200 years ago. The Africans had no idea, because it wasn't a thing. It hadn't been made up yet. The absence of African accounts reflects a history of colonial exclusion. They're not excluding them from the Masonic fun, I guess. But there's a reason that there's no old African depictions of gorillas. Maybe by now they've faked up a few, I don't know, and claimed that they're old. But there really isn't. Gorillas are absent in African lore. Ancient African lore. It's like the panda. The panda is totally absent in Chinese. There's no ancient Chinese depictions, but I have seen that, of course, the way that China is full of fakes. I have seen claimed ancient Chinese depictions of pandas, but that's BS. There are no true ancient Chinese panda depictions. Just think of growing up. You never saw like old Chinese style paintings depicting pandas unless they were a recent in the style of type thing. Anyways, I'm gonna end with this. This is a really interesting video to go look, or old movie to look up. So I could be mistaken. Go look this up. This is what I got from it just by reading through the Wikipedia page. There's some strangeness about this film. I think that they tried to sell this film as being legitimate. I think that they tried to sell, this is like early 1930s, maybe exactly 1930, this film, they tried to sell it as being legitimate. So I'm just going to read through it. This is very interesting. There are so many red flags going off here. This is so their modus operandi. The controllers, the people in control, the Freemasons who love getting people to believe in bullshit. This is just so hilarious. So I'm just going to read it and end the video. Much of the footage featured in the film was taken without permission from Grace Mackenzie's 1915 film Heart of Africa, which later resulted in legal action. Blah. The film the film purports to feature footage of a newly discovered animal, the tortadillo. Man, your alarm should be going off. This is so their MO to push extra fantastical stuff. Already in something that's over the top. This is when they're just going over the top with it. However, this animal was in fact a turtle with false wings and scales attached to it. It reminded me of the pangolin. A lot of these creatures are like the jackalope, snape hunting type things. But there's tons of these sorts of animals that people do believe in. And just because you know of certain funny fake animals like the jackalope, but then you'll believe in the duck-billed platypus, which go research the history of the duck-billed platypus. They knew it was a fake right away. It's just that they kept telling the lie over and over again. Prosthetics and special effects have gotten better and better over the years, and now they can sell it as a real animal. Narwhals are not real. Narwhals, often these days, it's seal footage with fake. They'll CGI a horn on seal footage and tell you it's a narwhal. Anyways, this is just, it's amazing. The tortadillo. The majority of the original footage was filmed at the Griffith Park Zoo. The gorilla in the film is portrayed with a mixture of stock footage, much of which is actual footage of orangutans and chimps. No, there's no such thing as real footage of orangutans or chimps. It'd be interesting. So this would be interesting to go to this film and look at the stock footage that they would try to pass off as legitimate and see how bad it is compared to today's suits. Because today's suits are obviously way better. They have animatronics in the faces. They're wearing these big, bulky muscle suits underneath it. And they have crutches. But there's a long history of gorilla actors in Hollywood. It's just that, like everything in Hollywood, there's more special effects these days. But hey, practical effects are really good. And just because it didn't used to be CGI doesn't mean that they couldn't make something that could fool people. Practical effects are very good. But the old suits are way worse. I mean, I always like to tell people about Gargantua. Go research the fursuit Gargantua because its face is so shiny and it's clearly not a real animal, but it's a fursuit. I don't have much more to read. In October 1930, actor Charlie Gamora, strange last name, signed an affidavit swearing that he portrayed the gorilla. Actor Hilton Phillips, originally hired to play one of the African natives in the film, alleged that he also played the gorilla. Phillips later sued Congo Pictures, claiming they failed to pay him. Yeah, I don't think necessarily that these gorilla actors get paid that much. Maybe, probably enough. Illuminati money is worthless these days. They can just make money poof into bank accounts if they want to. So if you're high enough Illuminati, I'm sure. But mostly these people are paid off being in on the joke. They love being in on the joke more than anything. Knowing the secret and getting off on fooling other people. Following the film's release, multiple articles and reviews were published that were skeptical of the film's authenticity. So, see, I didn't research this very much, but this is the part that made me think, oh, okay, so they were trying to portray this gorilla film. And there's some nasty stuff in this film. This film is like an old smut. They tried to make it seem like the gorillas were raping women in this film. And apparently they were trying to say that it was legit. Following the film's release, multiple articles and reviews were published that were skeptical of the film's authenticity. You don't say. In response, Congo Pictures filed a lawsuit against them, seeking 33. There's a 33 there. Interesting. 3,365,000. It's like a 33 and then 365. It's a very strange, oddly specific number. In damages, claiming that the MPPDA had circulated reports doubting the authenticity of the film. The majority of the film was false, fraudulent, deceptive, and misleading. Oh, so there you go. Congo Pictures did advertise for the film to be genuine. The film was pulled from circulation. So, if you were bored, I guess this might be an interesting thing to go look through, because there's footage in here that they claim is of real chimps and gorillas, but no such thing. You know what this reminds me of? This reminds me of Disney. How Disney, the whole urban legend that perpetuates still to today, for a lot of people think that lemmings commit suicide, and that's just totally made up by Disney. And they falsified footage to try to prove that lemmings would commit suicide off cliffs. It's quite insane, but yeah, these people have a long history of joking about animals and making people believe in animals that aren't real. And yep, check out my fake animal playlist. God bless everyone.